when I took it, I didn't pass. It was like, oh, this is like so discouraging. I just can't pass. I mean, to the point where I was like, should I even be doing engineering? Like, should I move to something else? Like, is this just not going to be for me? And it really was just my study method. Like, I was just following everyone else's study method, and I wasn't listening to my own like thoughts, my own brain, my brain was telling me what it wanted to do. And so and that's what I ended up doing this last time, was like really understanding like what can I do that's going to help me and not like someone else's method, right? So like the combination of those three things, I think really, really made a big difference between my previous times and this time around.
Bonjour guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to interview a student who recently passed her FE exam. But before we dive into that, I just want to say happy holidays, and to celebrate this exciting time of the year and also my huge milestone for hitting 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, I have some special announcement as to thank you guys for your support. So the first thing is my team and I have been working on some really cool t-shirts and stickers and so much more, so make sure that you guys check them out on my website. Also, in celebration of Black Friday and the holiday seasons, the courses are currently on sale, so you can grab the FE Bytes course for 20% off and the Statics course for 30% off. Now, this Black Friday sale is going to end on December 6th, so make sure you guys get the courses before it ends. In addition to all of that, I'm also doing a lot of giveaways. You might even win a free course, so make sure that you guys enter to win and do it quickly before it ends on December 1st. Now, good luck to each and every one of you, and I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Bonjour guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm joined by Rosa. Rosa, she's going to share with us her FE experience, and she's going to just tell us how she was able to pass her FE exam in her fourth time. Rosa, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm really excited to do this. So we just realized that we
Yeah.
actually went to the same school and
Yes.
we graduated in the same year.
Yeah.
And I did not know it was you till you
Yeah.
showed up right now. Like, no way, that's
Yeah.
Rosa from CSUN. And then, but
Yeah.
I had to confirm because like I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
what if you weren't?
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't. I didn't remember. I was like, I don't know if she. I'm not gonna say anything because I don't know if she remembers me. I didn't want to like put you on the spot either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to do this because we kind of like, we know a lot of people who passed, we know a lot of people who
Hmm.
didn't pass. And so it would be
Yeah.
really cool to kind of just dive into that and just, share your experience. And yeah, and then I'm really excited to do this. But before we dive into all that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, I already said that you graduated in 2006
Yeah.
in management,
Yeah.
and your major was civil engineering,
Yes.
right?
Civil
Okay.
engineering. Yeah.
Okay. And what kind of student were you in college?
I would say I was average. Like some might get C's. I already took a couple of classes. I remember. I think like structures. I think I took it like 3 times. So yeah, It wasn't super. I wouldn't say I was like super smart, but I like I was average. Just kind of
Yeah,
an average student in
I see.
college. Yeah.
Okay. And so you took structural engineering with Professor Yargari,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Ziva? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know what it was, but structures, even like studying for the FE, like structures just never stuck. I couldn't get it to like stick.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is really a tricky topic.
Mhm.
Yeah, it can be really difficult to
Yeah.
kind of process it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I remember you did some activities in college, like you did join ASCE, right? You were part
Yes.
of that.
Yeah.
How were you in, like, how much were you involved in that?
So I want to say like my junior year I was very involved. Like very I was like on the steel bridge team, I was in there. I spent I want to say like 4 to 5 days a week just like in that kind of organization. My senior year, I think I was vice president, but I was a little bit more relaxed, so I wasn't super involved, but still somewhat involved. But I was pretty much an ASC, I think my whole CSUN career. I was just that's kind of where I joined, and it actually helped a lot with in terms of just being ready for like the real world and just being ready to present and because I did a lot of public speaking during that time because I was like event coordinator and then vice president, and so I loved it. I loved it. Yeah,
Yeah, awesome.
I was
Okay,
very
great.
involved.
Yeah, so you recommend it to students who just start
Oh, for sure.
college, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important, especially to kind of join their like sub clubs, because to join, you can join and not really be involved. But if you join their sub clubs or just be part of like the organization there, um, I think it's super helpful. And then you get like connections, because I like people who I met at the conferences from like city, like Long Beach, Cal State Long Beach. I meet them now at work, and we're like, wait, I've seen you before. So and it's nice sometimes to have that, especially like if you go into a new environment and you see somebody who maybe you never met them, but they were part of the club also, and you could kind of use that as like a just kind of an easy way to get into like a new job. So I highly recommend it. Just one thing that I think every student should do is be part of some kind of organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember when I first joined, because I was going to UCLA and then I transferred to CSUN,
Mm-hmm.
and then I did join my first semester, and I think I remember you. That's when I
Okay.
remember you. It was you, and then it was I don't remember the other students. But anyway, so I remember, and I was kind of involved a little bit that first
Mm.
semester, and then I took a whole year off completely. I went
Mm.
back home,
Oh
whole year. I
wow.
wasn't going
Yeah.
to school, and then I came back, but I wasn't really involved
Hmm.
during that time
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, because it really took me a while to graduate, and I was like, I need to get my stuff
Yeah.
together, and I need to really like buckle
Yeah.
down and study and then graduate.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I wasn't really involved a lot, but I remember like a lot of students from ASCE, they really wanted me to join, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like a construction project. I kind of
Yeah.
a little bit briefly
Yeah.
during Christmas break, I think. But yeah, but I think like if because I did took a lot of years to graduate, but if you are going to directly to university, you graduate
Mm-hmm.
from high school, you transfer to university right away, and you know what you want to do, because I went through so
Mm-hmm.
many majors before I got into civil
Yeah.
engineering. So if you are already there, I think joining that group really helps you, because then you talk to seniors who already went through what you're going through. You can ask questions
Mm-hmm.
about the courses. You can ask who are the good teachers, good
Yeah.
professors,
Yeah.
right? The professors to avoid.
Yeah.
We definitely have that list, and I got it from that. You guys gave me everything in that first
Mm-hmm.
semester, like who to take, who to avoid, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just really helpful. And just to kind of,
Yeah.
especially like I would say, especially like female engineers, because like you get a lot of the classes. We were few females,
Yeah. Very few.
right? Like I remember I had this lab. I don't remember the dynamics lab or something, and I
Okay.
remember I was literally the
The
only
only one. Yeah.
only female, and I'm
Yes.
looking around and I'm like, it's all like male. So
Yeah.
being part of that group can really like
Mm-hmm.
help you to like get through those years. And it's also fun. A lot of students there, they're really fun and it's just really nice, and they just want to help, like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think I really recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, definitely. That's
Okay.
funny that you mentioned the list, though. I think it's still circulating somewhere on campus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I still remember the professors to avoid. Okay, but we're not going to mention them here. Okay, now why did you decide to take the FE?
Well, I mean, I knew it was kind of like the pathway to PE, and as a civil engineer, you kind of have to take it. It's kind of hard to move up if you don't have one. Um, it within like the engineering kind of field, and so I knew I had to take it at some point. So that's kind of what drove my decision to take it. And I knew that I wanted to get my PE just in general, because that's kind of like the ultimate goal when you're a civil engineer, is to be able to sign your own plans. So that's
Yeah,
kind of what drove me to take it. Yeah.
awesome. Okay, and you took FE Civil, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
So I first took FE other disciplines
okay,
in my junior year.
okay.
Yeah.
And
That
that's
didn't
why
go well.
I asked, because we went to the same school, and a lot of professors there,
Yeah.
they recommend FE other disciplines. I had
Yes.
Mr. Rias, And then I
Mm.
think the professor, the dean of school, I forgot his name. He taught me a vibration. Great, awesome professor.
Yeah.
I think Demerjian.
Dimension, yeah.
Yeah, he's like he recommended a few other disciplines as well. And then that was like my last year in college. And I did hear about the FE before in
Hmm.
from the ASC group. See, that's why it's
Yes.
really important to get in that ASC.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
seniors and they were talking about it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
FE, what's FE exam? I've never heard of it before. Like at UCLA,
Yeah.
I've never heard of it. Like, you know, but when I was in that, like that was really good. So I started looking into it. And then in my last year, I was like, let me take a look at this. And I look at the specifications and I'm like, wait, why do I have to take other disciplines? Like I I don't like electrical engineering, although we had to take it at CSUN.
Hmm.
I'm really big fan. And then there was like thermodynamics, there
Yeah.
like some other topics that it didn't make sense for me to take FE other disciplines. And when
Right.
I looked at FE civil, I'm like, well, I learned most of these topics here in college, so I'm just gonna go with civil. So that's why I asked because you went to CSUN. I was
Yeah.
wondering if you actually tried other disciplines.
Yeah, no, I did. It wasn't, yeah. I don't like, I think the only subject that I liked in it that was not CE was thermodynamics. But it's like circuits I can do. And then they used to have computational tools, which
Mm-hmm.
was like a lot of like not program, like coding
Mm-hmm.
almost.
Yeah.
And that I had like no idea because we don't even take a coding class. So that I had to learn all my own. So and then it was like some things that like I didn't remember. I think at the time they still had chemistry in there. They still had a little bit of biology, I think, in there. So it was just like stuff that I had taken, and it took me a while to graduate. Also, it took me 6 years to finish like college, right? And so some of the stuff that it was in there was stuff I took like 6 years ago, and I was like, I don't know if I remember any of this stuff. So yeah, that one wasn't the best choice to take that one, yeah, at the
Yeah.
time.
So the second one you took was civil.
The
You
second one that I
switched.
took was no, I didn't. I was like, I'm gonna try other disciplines again,
Okay.
and I didn't pass that one. And I was like, maybe I'll try civil this time. And I was already out of school. I had already graduated the third time I tried taking it. And then I didn't do well either. And then I put it off for like years.
Wow.
Maybe not years, maybe like 2 years. I put it off and I was like, no, I'll take it later. I'll take it. I kept pushing it and pushing and pushing. And finally I was like, I just need to get it over with. Just rip the band-aid and take it. So, and then
Okay.
the last one that I took was civil. Hmm.
Yeah. You took civil and you took the new one too. So we'll get into that a
Yes.
little bit.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Now, so you said that you took like 2 years off. What
Yeah.
really pushed you? What made you like? What made you think, okay, I really got to get this down? Like, and what
Yeah.
changed?
So, pretty much I kind of had already promoted up to like where I could get with just not having a PE. And I thought I could go further, but at work they kind of were like, okay, you need to take, or at least you need to be working towards it if you want to keep promoting, it within the organization. And so, um, and we kind of knew like there was some people that were going to retire soon, and so we like movement was going to happen at some point. And so it was kind of like, okay, I need to be ready for when this comes around because I don't want my fear of taking the FE hold me back from a promotional opportunity. So that's really what drove me, was that um I was like, oh, like I'm pretty much holding myself back, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So um it was like, okay, it's time to just kind of get in there and like put my big girl pants on and try to take this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's really amazing. So you saw like there were opportunities happening in front
Hmm.
of you and you couldn't get them because this FE is holding you back and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I have to change something here, like if I want to further my career. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing, because I think a lot of students, like, it's really important to find that why do you want to take this exam, because let's face it, like, this exam is very challenging, and there's some points, you know, where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, it just feels draining, and especially if you failed it before a couple of times, like, there's a lot of things going on, right? A lot of negative stuff. So if you don't have a strong why you're doing this, you might just give up in the middle of your studying. So, you know, when you have that why, you keep reminding yourself, no, I really want to get that promotion. I really want to get the PE. I got to keep going. There's no stopping here till I pass the FE. Yeah.
So, that was pretty much it. So before that, I didn't have any motivation, because I was like, oh, I'm doing just fine without it. And then it was like I hit pretty much the end of my road as far as I could go, and I was like, okay,
that's really great. Okay, now let's jumping into scheduling. How many months before the FE did you begin studying?
I started studying, so I had scheduled it, originally I had scheduled it for like, I want to say, like May of this year. So I had started studying like somewhat like January, but very light, like a very light studying. And then it approached like a month before, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to hurry up and like start studying. And then COVID hit, and they rescheduled mine to September. So it was like a blessing in disguise. And then that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I need to really study ahead of time. So in May, I kind of just did like general, kind of like preparing for studying. Like I made sure I had all my material. I had signed up for your course in May. And so I kind of just started preparing everything for that study date. And I want to say it was maybe like 2.5 months before that I actually really started kind of like sitting down and studying. I want maybe like 3 months, like where I would sit down and study a few hours, maybe like 2 to 3 hours a day if I could. If I couldn't, then I didn't really pressure myself. And then a month and a half, or sorry, like 2 months before, I kind of was like, okay, now I'm studying every single day for 3 hours a day. And then it just kind of increased my time as I got closer. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And my favorite part about your schedule is that before you started studying, you prepared everything. Like, this is the material I'm going to use. And then you started slowly, like doing a couple hours here and there. So that's like just kind of, it's like a warm up, right? When you start, when you want to exercise, if you haven't exercised for like, you know, a month or 2 months, you're not going to start running a marathon right away.
Right.
You got to warm up to it, right?
Yeah.
And I really like that. I think that's really important to kind of just prepare yourself mentally, like, hey, you know, maybe not this month, but maybe next month we're gonna have to sit every day and study for 3 hours, so here is a warm-up, you know. And I think, and I really like that, and I really like how you had what material you're going to use. That one is a big one as well, because like, you know, a lot of times like people spend so much energy trying to look for the right material while they're studying, and I don't recommend that. Like, do your research beforehand, have everything ready beforehand, so when you start studying, all that time that you're studying, you spend it on actually learning the material rather than searching for the material, right? So you spend that time wisely. And so let's talk about a little bit about the last 2 months. So you would study 2 hours every day or 3 hours every day. Did you keep the same time during the weekend? Did you increase it during the weekend?
It depended. So if it would just depend, because I have a lot of like family, so it was like sometimes I couldn't study on the weekend, or sometimes I just needed a mental break. I had worked, and then like I studied all week, and sometimes like some weekends I just didn't study at all because I just couldn't, my brain just couldn't do it anymore. But if I was actually studying, then yes, it was increased. I would study maybe like 6 hours, and I would never go more than 6 hours, because I couldn't retain any information after 6 hours. So I would kind of get up at a comfortable time and then start studying in the morning, kind of went through into the evening. And then if I felt like I needed to stop, then I'd stop. And if I felt like I could keep going, then I'd keep going on the weekends. But yes, I would increase. If I was studying, I would increase the time on the weekends.
Awesome. I love that. Like, you're so tuned with yourself. Like, if you already know that you can't study more than 6 hours, a lot of people don't know what's their limit. And that's something important to know, because like, if you can only study 6 hours, but you're really pushing yourself to study 8 hours, but your brain is just telling you, please stop, like I just can't retain any information, and you keep pushing it, at the
Mm-hmm.
end of that, you're going to like feel like disappointed in yourself because you didn't do the 8 hours that you wanted, instead of
Right.
focusing of like, hey, I did 6 hours of studying, that's great, I'm
Mm-hmm.
really proud of that, and that will keep you motivated, right?
Yeah.
So when you push yourself more than what you can do, there's disappointment, and from that you lose motivation and you don't want to study anymore. So it's really important to be aware of your thoughts. What can you do? What can you physically possibly do? And don't push it, right? If you can do 6 hours, that's amazing. Celebrate that, be proud of yourself. Stop after 6 hours, move on, go do something fun,
Mm-hmm.
right? To relax. So that's really, and I really like that. Like, your limits. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was hard, but I think that was helped me a lot from keeping like just from freaking out during the studying time.
Yeah, awesome. And you mentioned earlier that as the exam got closer, you increased that time.
Hmm.
How many hours did you increase it?
So as I got closer, I want to say like a month and a half prior to, I started requesting my Fridays off. So I work every other Friday, and so I started requesting those Fridays that I'm supposed to be working. I requested them all of those off up until the exam date, and just kind of let them know, hey, I'm studying for my FE, and I just want the extra day of hours. So instead of my 2 days of the weekend, like studying every Saturday and Sunday, I started doing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I would do 6 hours Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. And I mainly did that so that Friday I can use as a recap day where I would recap everything that I learned that week and then try to do like practice problems, or I would do like practice problems in the morning, and in the evening it would just be reviewing of the subjects. And then it kind of helped me know what I'm going to study for the next week. If I need to adjust my schedule, or if there's a subject that, I thought I was okay with, but I'm actually not okay because my practice problems aren't coming out right. Then I would reschedule everything as I went. So it was like constant scheduling every week, every Friday.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. I love that. So on Friday, you just sit and just kind of do like, so review everything that you've learned the weekend, which is amazing. You're reinforcing all the concepts, but then also you're like checking ahead,
Mm-hmm.
like what can I do for next week? Is there any other material that I need to focus on more? What are my weaknesses? My strength. Wait,
Yeah.
this is my strength. Is it really my strength, or I do have a little bit of weakness
Right.
there?
Exactly.
That's amazing. It's like, I think
Yeah.
that's really important because, like, asking those questions, and before your exam, you're gonna find out those weaknesses and you can work on them before you go in
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to find out
Yeah,
during the
exactly.
exam.
Yeah, no, yeah, I definitely don't want to find out during the exam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. Uh, hold on, my iPad turned off. Okay, I have the questions here. Okay, so what did you mentioned that some weekends you just didn't feel like it, you just take time off just to kind of recharge. Did you do
Mhm.
anything specifically to recharge, or it was just like, you just didn't study?
Yeah, so I would just mainly it was just like watching movies or watching TV, or um I think there was like a time where I was like I need to like just leave, like get out, and I would kind of just drive around or I'd go visit my parents. Um and it was just like just a matter of getting out of the house, like change, because I live in like a very small apartment, so my like study area is also my eating area, and it's also like my like hangout area. So to have like all those areas intermixing, it was kind of hard to kind of separate. So I would just go outside, take my dog for a walk, or do like a little day trip and kind of drive far if I needed to. Or I just kind of watch TV, and it would be like even watching TV in someone else's house kind of helped too. It's just kind of separating, because then if I'm watching TV in the living room, I just can see it in the corner of my eye, like you should probably be studying. And I didn't want to feel the guilt. I just wanted to like completely take my mind off of it. So that's kind of typically what I would do to kind of just forget about it if I could for the day.
Yeah, that you really brought up great points. Like, you had this spot where it was like you did a lot of things in there, and usually, I recommend a lot of the students to have like a dedicated studying spot, but
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of people can have that. And
Right.
another thing is that I remember core, he's one of the students I interviewed. He mentioned that he used to study at the kitchen, but then he couldn't study or focus. But eventually he moved, and then he was able to have his dedicated studying spot.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, he would also go to Starbucks near his work, and he would just get so much done over there.
Yeah.
But because of COVID and the
Mhm.
lockdown, because I remember like you were a lot in like on campus, so you would
Yeah.
study in the library, so
Yes.
and then so you don't mind the noises and
Yeah.
from the background, but because of the lockdown, like I even like I was talking to my husband like a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I just feel like we do everything now at home. We work out
Mhm.
at home, we work at home, we eat at home. Because of the
Yes.
lockdown, like you don't
Yeah.
differentiate between these spots, and so
Yes.
it's like it really gets overwhelming.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and I like how you would just go see parents or watch TV, but maybe in a different house.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was just I needed to like separate because like you said, usually like studying for me, it was like I needed to go somewhere else to study so that when I came home, I didn't have to worry about doing it at the house. But yeah, because of lockdown, it was just it was I could it was so hard to like be able to separate just mentally, and sometimes that's kind of like important to be able to just separate the two.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, now let's talk about your preparation. What material did you use?
I used mainly I used your course. And the first course that I did was a statics because statics I couldn't remember how to do any of it. And I knew it was a kind of like foundation of everything. Like if fluids, it's a foundation of dynamics. You kind of needed statics for everything. So I did your statics course first. And then I got your FE Byte like morning session. And I did that also. And then I did like the which I heard from like another one of your interviews that she used the Gregory Michelson videos, and like his kind of helped a lot too. His were kind of lengthy, so I had to do a lot of fast forwarding. And then your YouTube video, they did a lot of your YouTube videos, and I bought like every single FE book that you put on your website. I want to say like I bought almost every single one. And then the mock exam that you gave, I had a lot. I think I want to say I had like 5 FE books of just like example problems. And then I had like old coworkers who were kind of giving me their like Linderberg books. So I only used the Linderberg, like the thick FE book, when it was a subject that I didn't know. So like environmental, I would kind of read through it, or geotechnical things that I couldn't really fully remember the concepts. Then I would read through the chapter to kind of take notes and see if there's any important conceptual information. But mainly it was like the big book for anything that I didn't know, a lot of YouTube videos and the practice exams, and then your course, I obviously to do kind of some of the example problems on subjects that maybe I couldn't remember fully how to do.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so who was your professor for statics in
Oh,
school, if you remember?
I don't remember.
Was it Ananyan? No?
No. I think it was
Was it
uh
Rias? Professor Rias
no,
Ahmed?
actually no, I think it was Gorgian.
Oh, Gurchin. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
He taught me surveying.
Yes. Yes.
He's a
Yeah,
really nice
he was
guy.
my yes, very
Yeah,
nice
he's really
guy.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was my statics professor.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then so what material did you use for your third attempt? So when you took it like 2 years ago, what material did you use when you took it then?
Oh, like before like this one passing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't use anything. I think I only used the Linderberg book, like the thick
Okay.
book, and then I used like one practice exam. And I had the practice exam, but I don't even think I used it, to be honest. I think I only went through the Linderberg
Okay.
book. And I it didn't work for me. It's kind of hard because that book is it's a lot. It's a lot of information. And the more I went through it, the more discouraging I got. More discouraging it got to take the exam, which
Mm.
is not really what you need when you're trying to take the exam. And so it was a lot of information, and it was kind of like it was exhausting to have to go through it, and like my brain just didn't want to like take in any of that information. And I think I only studied for like 3 weeks
Hmm.
for that exam. So, which is what I like thought is all you needed, because they tell you like, oh, it's fine, you could do it in 2 weeks, you could do it in 3 weeks, like it's not that hard, it's just general stuff, but it was not what I thought it was going to be at all. So, um, yeah, that's kind of what I used for the third attempt. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit before we started the interview, where we were talking how, like, some people say don't study for it, just review
Yeah.
book, you'll be fine. You should just review for 3 weeks and you're going to pass. And a lot of things. And we mentioned that there's like you have the bosses and employees who took the
Mm-hmm.
exam, like in 2004 and 2008, when the exam was way easier back then, so
Mm-hmm.
they don't know
Yeah.
exactly how the new AF exam is. And then we also were talking about, like, one of our classmates. He was an okay student,
Yeah.
and he was studying. I remember him just walking around campus with the Ledger book, just skimming through it, and he literally did it for like 3 weeks. I was surprised
Yeah.
that he was gonna do it, take it in 3 weeks and not really study for it. And then he passed, and then we were like, whoa, like that.
What? Yeah.
We were like, what? Like,
Yeah.
he passed you. That's awesome. And he was really happy and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have other students, who are like B students, and or and they really struggle on passing this
Mm-hmm.
exam. So it really just depends. Like, and
Yeah.
the big one is not compare yourself to other people,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody has a different journey.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are just good at taking tests, and some people, like, even though they know the material, because they have test anxiety, they could just not pass, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it's really important to, like, just not put yourself in that negative thought where you spiral and you start comparing yourself
Mm-hmm.
to other people and starting to go like these people are passing it, what's wrong with me? Am I like fit for this field? Or
Yeah.
like, it just, everyone has a different journey. Figure out what works for you and then just go from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why it goes back to, like, I really like how you planned it out. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
you failed the FE exam the third time. Well, the first two times you took other disciplines, then you took
Yeah.
civil. You were like, okay, people are saying it's easy, let me try their method. It didn't work. You took 2 years off, right?
Yeah.
You were like, I'm just gonna pause this for a second, and then I'll figure it out later. When time came, you were like, okay, I'm going to just take my time, prepare the material. How am I going to tackle it this time? What works for me, what doesn't work for me, right? So you were just
Mm-hmm.
kind of trying to figure out how you're going to be able to pass it, and then always analyzing where I'm at. Like, every Friday, I love that, sitting down, where
Yeah.
I'm at, where's the progress, what should I study next, what did I study this week, did I grasp all the concepts, what am I missing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to do all these steps, because
Yeah.
this is how you're going to prepare for the FE exam. Or you could try 2-3 weeks, go volunteer book and go give it a try. And if you pass,
Yeah.
that's great. And if you don't,
Yeah.
then you gotta do something about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's one thing that like, it was such a fear of like not passing. Cause the first time I didn't pass, it was like all like my like classmates were like passing, and I'm like, why am I not passing? And so then like the second time I took it, I still wasn't passing. And the third time I took it, like, my boss was like, it's easy. Like, you can take it. It's fine. Like, I did fine and you're going to be fine. And, she was like, I had kids when I took it, and it was like, no big deal. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, well, you could do, I mean, I guess I could do it. So when I took it, I didn't pass. It was like, oh, this is like so discouraging. I just can't pass. I mean, to the point where I was like, should I even be doing engineering? Like, should I move to something else? Like, is this just not going to be for me? And it really was just my study method. Like, I was just following everyone else's study method, and I wasn't listening to my own like thoughts, my own brain, my brain was telling me what it wanted to do. And so and that's what I ended up doing this last time, was like really understanding like, what can I do that's going to help me and not like someone else's method, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I really love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of students can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not sure if you listened to Julie's story, but she felt the same way.
Yeah.
She was really like, she felt defeated. She lost confidence. She started to doubt herself as an engineer. I also interviewed Norma this morning.
Mm-hmm.
and she went through the same thing. And I feel like a lot of students really go through that, and just knowing that, hey, you're not alone in this. You know, a lot of people go through this, and you just gotta figure out what works for you, and you will pass your FE exam as well. Just keep going, right? And listening to your brain. I love that. Like, your brain already knows what you need to do. Just block all the thoughts. Forget Reddit's comments. Forget what your bosses are saying. Forget your classmates and your friends. Your brain already knows what you need to do. Listen to it. You just gotta, block everything to be able to listen to your own thoughts, and you will figure it out, and you will get there.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Awesome. Okay. Now, did you feel like your undergrad classes prepared you well for the FE exam? Now, we did go to the same school, so I kind of know already, like, they don't offer, I didn't take transportation or okay.
Yeah.
So, but everything else, did you feel like they prepared you well for the FE exam? How did you feel?
Oh, that's a tough question. So, only because a lot of it I didn't remember. So it was like, oh, I don't even remember in general how to do something. But I think from like the top of my head, I think some classes did and some classes didn't. So like steel, he probably did prepare me, but I don't remember any of it. Concrete did a lot because concrete was one of my favorite classes, so that was kind of an easy class for me. Same thing with geotechnical, even though it was kind of like a hard class, but it was, I would say it kind of did prepare me a little bit. And same thing with a lot of the water classes did prepare me because I had a really, really good professor. I mean, he was just a really good professor. But that was kind of it. I mean, we didn't get transportation, we didn't get environmental, we didn't get barely construction management, but it wasn't like the best class. Yeah, and then like the econ stuff, the same thing. Like I didn't have like the best professor, and it was just kind of like I kind of skated through it and kind of got lucky when I passed it. And so, a lot of that stuff, like the transportation, I just learned from my work because I work in transportation. And so all that stuff that I learned in my just work and what I did at work is what I was applying to the exam. And environmental, I think I even skipped environmental. I don't even think I really studied it. I think I kind of read through it and was like, all right, that's sure, that should be enough. And I think I want to say I skipped environmental and surveying I had to skip it because I was like, I don't know how to do this. I didn't know any of the terminology. I had no idea what backside and foresight was. I didn't know like margins of error. I didn't know anything, and I was like, there's no way I can learn any of this in 2 months. So
yeah, I think a lot of my students who are taking FE Civil do not like environmental. And a lot of them, they just go like, yeah, I'm just gonna skip it. And actually right now Pranita joined our team, engineer team, and she's one of my students. I also interviewed her. And so like now when we have, when we talk to students, and they always go like, oh, environmental, I just want to skip it, and Pranita gives them like some tips on like it's not really as scary as it seems. This is what you need, and you'll be fine. And then she also goes like, yeah, I didn't like environmental either. And so it's like,
I did it actually. So for environmental, I knew that I needed to know like the kind of like the chemical reactions, and like I think they give you like a formula, like how much O2 are you going to need, or what's the moles of O2 that you'll need, which is stuff that like I had no idea. I had learned it in like chemistry and biology. But my sister was studying for the MCAT at the same time. So I was like, hey, I'll help you with physics if you help me with this chemistry stuff. And that's how I did the environment. And I think I only learned how to do like balancing equation. That's like I went through a couple practice problems, and that's all I did for environmental. Everything else I was like, maybe I'll know, maybe I won't know. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see when we get there. Yeah,
that's amazing. I like the trade that you did with your sister. I'll teach physics if you teach me.
Yes, exactly. I love
that. That's great. Okay. Did you take any practice exams?
So I had a lot of them. but I didn't take many.
Okay.
So I kind of did it different because I'm just a very fidgety person, and to sit for multiple times like for 5 hours just wasn't gonna happen for me. Like I just can't do it. So actually, so what I did was, and it's something that a coworker of mine suggested was that, and what she would do is she would take like a practice exam for an hour and a half because she knew like an hour because it's hard to get 5 hours in your day when you work, and you still have to study. So it was like I would spend like 1 week would be my practice exam week, and I would do an hour and a half after I got off of work, of just like timed practice exams, and I'd stop it, and then I'd study whatever I needed to do, and then the next day I would do like the same thing, another hour and a half or 2 hours, and that's kind of how I broke it down. And I think the 1 week I did that, I didn't do any studying, to kind of somewhat keep the same type of environment, because you can't really study every hour, but that's kind of what I do with my practice exam. And then I did take one full practice exam of like my morning session and afternoon session broken up into 2 days. But I don't think I ever did like a one full 5 hour sit down because I just couldn't do that more than once.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's great. I think, because some people can relate to that. And I remember, I think Jeff mentioned that, like, he couldn't
Yeah.
really sit for like full 5 hours and just kind of take the exam. And so what he did is that on Saturday, he took half of the exam, and then on
Mm,
Sunday, he took the other half.
yeah.
So, like, yeah, that is really, great recommendation because, well, what I like about yours is that first you took one practice exam and you broke it down in a couple days, in a couple
Yeah.
hours. And then you took the second practice exam, which you broke down in 2 days, and then you
Mm-hmm.
took the actual exam. So by that, it's like you trained yourself a little bit
Yeah.
to get used to the
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
I did like what I called them my practice exam days, where I would take the practice exam and I wouldn't really take it like timed or anything. I just would just that for that day, I would just that was my studying, is take all those questions, and then I'd get to like 20 questions, and then I'd go back and look at my answers, and then I would and that's kind of like when I started using my Fridays, and I would mark the ones that I got wrong and was like, okay, these are for the next week, the subjects that I need to study on because I don't know anything of it. So
awesome. Okay.
yeah.
And did you had to wear the mask during the actual
Yes.
exam? How did
Mm-hmm.
you feel about that?
So I had seen in one of your previous videos where somebody was practicing with their mask on. Um, and I was like, I wear my mask at work.
Okay.
So I was wearing my mask because I was at that time we had already come back into the office, and so I was already kind of used to wearing it all the time. And I was like, I don't want to be at home and wearing it again. I just wore it for 8 hours. So I didn't practice it because I was already kind of accustomed to it by that point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good because a lot of times here in LA, you can't really go anywhere.
Right,
Like you
without
have to
it.
wear your mask on.
Mhm.
So it's just the fact of like getting yourself used to it. It's important.
Mhm.
But if you're not used to wearing it in the morning or during the day, if you're actually taking a practice exam, it helps to kind of just get
Yeah.
used to it, right? Because
Mhm.
like the first couple of days when you wear a mask for long hours, you go, man, this is tiring. But then
Yeah.
eventually you just
Right.
forget about it.
And
Like you just yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think I did there's like, so I have a couple different masks, right? Because I like have a lot of different masks that I had like that I made myself. And so I had like a favorite mask, and it was like more and more breathable one. And that's the one that I took with me to take my exam because I already knew that I felt more comfortable with that mask. So that's the one that I took with me. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, now let's discuss some of your study techniques. Are there any study habits that you found not to be effective?
Um, I would say like watching problems, where
Mm,
like you would just watch them be solved. Like that
yeah.
didn't help at all. I don't know. At some point I thought that it would help, but it doesn't. It doesn't help at all. Um, and maybe for some it does, but for me that did not help. I wasn't retaining anything. So it was just kind of that's kind of how you have your program set up, where you see the problem and then take it. And so at first I kind of let you give me the hints in your like previous video, and then I stopped it. I would try to avoid getting the hints from you and then see if I can figure it out myself. Then if I couldn't figure it out, then I would like let you give me the hint, or like press play and let the hint be given, and then I try again. And if I still couldn't do it, then I would kind of watch what you were doing, and I would only watch up to the point where I got stuck, and then I try to solve it later, continue solving from that point on. So and then the ones where I got stuck, that little method, or the whatever it was, if it was like, remember to do a negative sign or anything that I thought was helpful, then I would keep it put into my little cheat sheet. So it was kind of like, don't forget to do this when you get stuck here. So that's kind of how I think so just watching them, I don't think is a good idea. Or just like watching them being solved, or trying to cram too much in a short amount of time if it's something that you're not comfortable with. Like, you kind of have to allow yourself to take the time and really, really study it. So I think those are kind of the two things that I tried doing on all my previous exams, and I wasn't able to be successful using those methods.
Yeah. Wow, you shared some great tips here. So the first one is struggling through the problems. I love that. Like, you have to really sit and struggle through. Like, I like how you get the hints, and then you try not to do the hints, and then try to see how far you can go. And then if you're stuck, you look at the solution. And it's like that is the best way to learn something. Watching the problem, you're not really retaining information or processing it. You actually have to solve the problems. And I really like the cheat sheet. So a lot of students would ask me for the cheat sheet, and I do have a couple cheat sheet right now. I'm working on some more. But again, it's important to create your own cheat sheets, because like you said, you make sure you don't forget the negative. I don't know if you're gonna forget or not. You might forget the negatives. Another person might not forget the negative, so he might not have that on his cheat sheet.
Right.
But I was like you. That's how exactly my cheat sheet was. Like, if I do a mistake, I go like, do not forget to add the negative, or do this, and I literally write that, and then I write, don't forget the units. Like, that is simple. Like, yes, of course I'll remember the units, but writing it down, it just helps. And I'm like, I always make sure you cancel the units, make sure you write the units down. And I do that with you guys as well. It's like, I always write all the units. We always go back, let's make sure the units cancel, because that just really helps you make sure, like, okay, this seems right. Like, I'm sure like 95% this process right here is correct, because the units cancel, and it just kind of helps. So and the last one you mentioned is quality versus quantity. You said like it's important to kind of to cover like one topic, make sure that you got it, then trying to cram everything and try to learn everything all at once. Just focus on like one topic at a time, or one problem at a time. And I always say this, like, it's better to do one problem in 1 hour than doing 10 problems in 1 hour, not getting any of those 10 problems, right? So it's really focusing on quality, like, and always like ask yourself, like, at the end of this study session, did I have a productive session? Did I learn something? Am I missing something? What am I missing? Why am I stuck? Always make sure that you ask those questions, because if there's a problem, you'll be able to know, okay, we have a problem, let's find a solution. Whereas if you keep going, for you there's no problem, but there is actually a problem. So I really like how like you're so tuned in with your thoughts, and you always like, that's amazing. That's really not easy to something to have. A lot of people have to really work on that. So how did you how did this
so it's mainly I think what really, really helped is was the scheduling, for whatever reason, is what helped me kind of stay in tune with myself. And it was like, so what I did was I think I used like your FE study plan program that you provide for us, where I would like kind of prioritize like which ones have like the most points, and then I kind of would study down that way, like from the highest to the lowest. And then I would assign like days to it. Like if it was a big one, then I would give it 5 days of studying. And I kind of would be conservative that way. And then I kind of just followed that schedule. And as I was studying, if I felt like I didn't give myself enough time, I wouldn't allow myself to freak out because like, oh, the fifth day on this subject is coming and I still don't know anything. So it was just kind of like, it was hard. I had to like remind myself to be like kind of in zen, like, okay, you have to like be okay with not following your schedule. Like that's why in every schedule I always have like a buffer time. And I do a lot of project management at work, so like construction management, so that kind of helped a little bit, is just like knowing to schedule and provide buffers, and knowing like things are going to delay your studying. I mean, just life happens. And so I think, and it was just like listening. If I felt like I was getting tired, then I just would stop. And I wanted to keep going, but I knew that if I stopped and just relaxed, that I could kind of come back to it. And sometimes the relaxing was like, I would relax and I would be, okay, I'm going to watch TV for the rest of the night. And I would feel my mind kind of waking up again. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can do a couple more hours, and I'll try to do a couple more hours. And then, it was just being flexible with like just what your brain or body wants to do. I think that's just kind of how I became more and more in tune with it. And then I kind of got, and you like, your body always creates patterns. So I kind of knew like, okay, after 5 hours, usually that's where I get tired, so I'm gonna just stop at 5 hours, and maybe I just need an hour break today. Or if I had like a really tough day at work, then I'm like, I know I'm not gonna focus, so maybe I'll just give 2 hours. And sometimes like I surprise myself, I'm like, oh, you know what, actually I can still go another hour, so I'll go another hour. And so um that's kind of how I started becoming more and more in tune as I started studying more and more and more. Is just like, okay, what am I feeling, like making sure to stop, like am I really like gonna be okay moving forward for another hour, or am I getting too tired? So that's kind of how I started becoming more and more in tune with my like just brain and listening to what it wanted to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think so. What I would like about your whole plan is that the flexibility, and that's one is really important, because when you have a rigid schedule and when you don't achieve
Mm-hmm.
that, you start feeling disappointed. And
Mm-hmm.
so being aware of that, like, hey, things are going to happen, life happens, I might be tired, I might get sick, things, like it's really important to make sure that you have a flexible schedule. And then I feel like a lot of times you just really just focus on the moment. You
Mm-hmm.
just focus on the daily, like, okay, today how I feel. Can I do
Mm-hmm.
2 hours? Can I do 3 hours? Like, you're not focusing about tomorrow, and you're not really in like yesterday. Oh, yesterday
Mm-hmm.
I did 3 hours. I can do 3 hours today. No, you take it day by day. Okay, today how
Mm-hmm.
am I feeling? What can I do today? How far can I go? And I love that. Like being
Yeah.
in present and just kind of, that's very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. Okay. Now, did you make any changes to your study habits or materials between the time you failed the FE exam versus the time you passed?
Yes, I started studying earlier. So, I stopped, what's the word? Like, because I think I was like too confident in terms of like what I knew. And I kind of just humbled myself, like, okay, you don't know what you think you know. So let's start studying the stuff that you don't know. And so, um, like it was kind of like, who am I kidding? Like I don't know any of this. I think it was just increasing the time for myself, instead of thinking like, I was like, okay, obviously 2 or 3 weeks or a month before is not working, so I need to increase my time. But I think it's just, I think maybe it's for most people, but for me it was like, oh, like why do I want to spend 3 months studying for this one exam? Like you don't want to do this. Um, but it was just kind of like just sucking it up, like, okay, it is what it is, I'm gonna have to use 3 months, and I don't want to be doing this for 3 months, but I'd rather do this for 3 months than have to do it all over again, right? So that was one thing I changed. It definitely increased my time to give myself that flexibility, because in the 3 months I was like trying to cram everything in, and I was becoming discouraged because I couldn't like learn everything as fast as I wanted to do it. um, so that was one thing. And then also just like watching those like YouTube videos, just watching the YouTube videos, and then your course I think was like the biggest help, because um I didn't want to like buy anything. I didn't want to buy any course. I was like, I can do it myself. Like I went through school, I did it in school, like I can do it myself. But sometimes you kind of need like that additional help. And then you have a lot of like tips and tricks that like I knew how to do it one way, but you had like tips and tricks on how to do it faster. And that's what helped. And like really learning, one thing that I didn't do before was I didn't learn my calculator. I didn't know all the functions it could do. I didn't know um, like integrals. I realized all my other exams, I was doing integrals by hand to do like to take the test. And I was like, why am I giving myself this tough time? I could just do it, plug it in to my my computer, my calculator, and it'll be done. So and like matrices, like being able to do that on my calculator. And so just kind of a lot of that, like the combination of those three things, I think really made a big difference between my previous times and this time around.
Yeah. That's great. I like how you mentioned the it's really cool because like all these interviews I get to see like what people get most from the courses, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
Fred, I posted his interview last week and he really got like the approach on like the step by step, you know, giving him the skills of how to approach engineering problems in general, and he was able to answer a lot of these FE exam questions. And then for you it was like the fast way, like, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
and I always try to do that. I always give like tip, like even like for like the trusses, you know, like I try
Mm-hmm.
to show you guys, you could do method of section, but let's try method of join, so just so you guys
Mm-hmm.
can see how the forces get transferred, and that way you can do it mentally. And guess
Yeah.
what? It's going to take you a minute to solve a whole truss.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like always fun to do all these
Yeah.
different tips and tricks, you know, like and I really like how you like you that really resonated with you a lot, like those, you know, how to solve the problems in a fast way. So that's really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now let's explore the day before you took the FE exam. Were you feeling ready and were you stressed?
Um, I was a hot mess. I was stressed. I was nervous. I'm like a very emotional person. I started crying. Like I just had like a mental breakdown. Like it was just
Oh,
not a good day. And
wow.
I think like I had watched some of your videos like the week before, and so I was kind of getting tips and tricks from everybody of like what they did the day before that helped.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of did some of those things. And one of the things I think I did mainly was like some were saying like, oh, I studied like all day, and then some were like, oh, I just took the day off. And I was like, I don't know if I could take the day off comfortably without like kind of freaking out. So what I ended up doing is I went through, because my cheat sheets were, you know, it was like per section, but it was like in each section I had like a notebook for, and my cheat sheets were just tabbed. I didn't really like create an actual cheat sheet. So it was just kind of going through, rewriting the problems, reading through the ones that I didn't get right. So every time I got something wrong during my study, I was tabbing it, or if I needed to remember something, I tab it. Just because I didn't really feel like rewriting it all the time. So the tabs kind of helps, then I can come back and like look, okay, what problem was that again? So I kind of just rewrote my cheat sheet really to kind of like organize it better and bring it down, like condense it, because I had like
Mm-hmm.
stacks and stacks of notebooks. So I tried condensing it so that I can do a quick read through on my break or right before I start taking the exam. So I kind of just did that. And then I watched, which was kind of like a good thing and a bad thing, but you had just posted an interview when I took it. It was like in September. And I can't remember her name, but she was kind of talking about like her study methods, and I was like, oh, I didn't do any of that. So then I started freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't do like what she did, and she passed it. And I think she had also taken it like on her fourth time she had passed. And I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Like I didn't do all of that. Like I was freaking out. And finally I was like, you know what, it is what it is, and if I don't pass, I'll just retake it. Like it's not really that big of a deal. um and you know, I was like, just schedule it right away or something. And it was just kind of, I had to just mentally prepare myself for not passing. And I think that that's pretty much what I did. I did a lot of mental preparation. I did like redid my cheat sheets, and then I got everything ready the night before. So whatever I was gonna take with me, I made sure like I was able to pack my lunch. Um, I made sure I had like my breakfast ready for the next day. I made sure all my cheat sheets were in my bag. I made sure that my calculator was working. I like triple, quadruple checked to make sure everything was in the bag before going to sleep. And then I went to bed kind of early. And right before going to bed, I just kind of just watched TV. I kind of watched through some of the stuff that I maybe didn't know how to solve. And I was like, maybe I'll get the same problem and I can kind of remember how to start it. So I think I did like survey. I think I looked at like survey right before I went to bed. And that's kind of what I did the day before. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a day.
It was a day. I had a day. It was a
Wow.
big day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the video, Juanica's interview, right? That was Juanica, the interview.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Huh.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it goes back to, comparing yourself to other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you've been doing amazingly so far. You've been like listening to your body, listening to your brain, like what works for me. And then the day before you watched this interview and you were like, what? I didn't do that. That's it. I'm
Yeah.
going to fail. But
Yeah.
then everybody has a different journey, right? And I share these interviews because this way, like, some people might find Juanica's tips might help them, and some
Mm-hmm.
might find your tips more helpful, and some might find Fred's interview like tips more helpful. So it just, because we're all different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I like to do these interviews, so I can like find out what people are doing, and every time I get they're different stories, like different methods, different techniques. And I think that's amazing. Figure out what works for you. That's what's important. And if that works, then you got to keep going. And once you take the exam, then if you don't pass, that's when you stop for a second and be like, okay, what did I do before? What's not
Mm-hmm.
working here? What can I change? What can I do now to make sure that I pass? And you just got to keep going. It's like trial and error till you figure out what works for you, right? But here you are, the day before the exam. You don't know if your method would have worked or not yet because you
Yeah.
haven't taken the exam, and you're like freaking out. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that, because that is amazing. And some people might relate to that, might be like, yeah, that's how I feel. But it's like really it's about you and what works for you, and that's what's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then for the freaking out, like usually, like I tell my students, like if you guys are stressed out or anything, please reach out. So
Mm-hmm.
how come? What happened? Why didn't you?
Oh, well, that's kind of where like my sister and I were taking our exams a week apart from each other. So I was taking
Okay.
mine, she was taking hers the next week, and
Okay.
um, we've been like each other's kind of like, like just kind of our each other's rock, like just okay, it's okay, don't freak out, you're gonna be fine. And so I was just like freaking out. And I was like, let me just call her and like just kind of try to get my mind off of it. And so it was just kind of like, and she was kind of having a moment also. So we kind of talked it through, and I felt better afterwards.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of yeah. I was like, okay, if this doesn't work, then I'm just gonna email Kenza because I don't know what else am I gonna do, and but thankfully she was ever able to kind of talk me down from just
Awesome.
having a massive freak out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you guys were like study buddies.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
like that. Actually, right now, my team and I were trying to work on study groups. So we're trying to put like students, 3 or 4 students from the class, and then kind of put them together so that way, when they freak out, and we'll be able to like see,
Yeah.
there's me, Pranita, and then also Skylar, and we're in that group. And so when we see students who's freaking out, we're gonna jump in and be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Let's figure this out. Let's make sure you stay
Yeah.
on track. So we're working on that right now. I think those study groups can help a lot, like for that could be useful. For example, in your situation,
Yeah.
you were in that study group, you could have shared that. And
Right.
luckily you had your sister who was going through the same thing, even though
Mm-hmm.
you guys were not taking the same exam, but just
Yeah.
knowing that you guys going through the same stress, and she was able to help you, like that. It's just amazing, and it shows
Yeah.
like having that kind of support, it's really important, and it
Mm-hmm.
just really helps a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that she was able to, calm you down. And
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome. Okay. All right. Now let's dive into the day of the exam. How were you feeling during the exam?
During the exam, I was freaking out a little bit. It was kind of nerve-wracking because, and it's really, it wasn't the problems, it's just the time, like the time. So I had given myself, like 2 hours for the first half and then 3 hours for the second half because I knew I was going to need more on the other, like the more discipline specific questions.
Yeah.
And so I was doing really well, and I hit the 2 hour mark, and I was like, I probably should just like hurry up. But I was like, no, I like really want to like solve some of these problems I knew how to do. And it was a matter of like, if I didn't know it, I'd guess and move on. So I'd guess, flag it, and then move on. And then I would do like an educated guess if I can kind of figure out like where it is, and which I had done kind of during the like when I did my practice exams at home. And so I kind of did those, and then if I really really knew and I knew exactly how to do it, then I would just solve through it. So I think I ended up spending like 3 hours on the first half of the exam, and the second half I did like the last 2 hours, and I was kind of rushing it at the end. I mean, I think I submitted the exam like with 3 seconds left. Like I went all the way to like the very 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 end, to the point where I just couldn't keep going anymore. But I didn't feel any like anxiety on like on the previous exams that I had taken, because some of the stuff I had already seen in a practice problem, or something similar in a practice problem, or I was just able to kind of come up with like a very educated guess, even though maybe I thought, okay, I'm not going to have time to solve it. Just knowing like the basics, like especially like in statics, like I can kind of figure out, okay, if there's friction, the final velocity is going to be a little bit slower than the initial one. So just kind of using that kind of educated guess situation really helped a lot. And just that's that's where like studying the conceptual stuff when I was doing my studying really came in handy during the exam. But I was actually a lot more relaxed during this exam than I was in all my other ones, because I knew I had done what I could do. And like I said, I had already come into terms with like, okay, if I don't pass it, it's okay. So I just kind of gave myself like the time and space to just think about that, because I think my previous exams, all I did was like freaking out during the exam, like I'm not gonna pass this. I just kept doubting myself throughout the exam. And this time I just kind of was like, you know what, you study, like this information, just let your brain do what it wants to do as you're like solving the problems, because it will just come, it'll come to you. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty generally kind of how I did throughout the exam on average.
Great. So I really like how you have that. It's okay if I don't fail, because a lot of times when you are so afraid of failing, guess what's gonna happen? You will fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that happen to a lot of students. And I think just embracing that and just telling yourself, hey, worst case scenario, I fail, I'll take it again. That's the right. Nothing will happen. Like, especially like if you're taking this for yourself and it's not for your job, and you're not gonna get fired. And because some people, they have to pass it for their jobs. So if you're not in that situation, like, just be okay with it, because if you focus so much on it, guess what's gonna happen? Your brain will make you fail. It's just how it works. So you gotta focus more on like, like, I want to pass this exam and I'm just gonna do my best, instead of focusing like, I really don't want to fail. I don't want to fail, right? So that's really important one. I like how you had like, hey, I would like to do 2 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. Didn't work out. You were able to be flexible right away. You were able to make it work, right? And also I think like, because the morning session has a lot of easy questions, getting those gives you a high chance of passing, right? So, and if you leave, like 2 hours to 2 hours and a half for the afternoon, I think you should be fine. Because also a lot of the afternoon questions now, they have conceptual, and usually takes 30 seconds. Like, you're gonna read, you either know it or you don't. So the next step is do educated guess, and if you can't do that either, you're just gonna have to put a letter and move on. So and that leaves you a little bit of time for the long problems. And like you mentioned in the previous exams, you would, during the exam, like, you are already telling yourself, oh, I'm gonna fail again. And that's really interesting. And this time you were like, let me just enjoy the exam and just see where
Yeah.
it goes, right?
Yeah.
And then you were like more relaxed, and obviously that works because you passed the FE exam. So I think those are really great points. um okay, and so how many questions did you have to guess? Do you remember? Like,
Yes. I counted them. So I think on the first half, I think I guessed on 7.
okay.
Yes, I get like completely guessed. Like I had no idea what it meant. I had no idea how to even solve it. I guessed on 7 on the first. And then I think I want to say like a couple, maybe 5 that were like an educated guess. I can kind of get an idea, a feel for it. And then I don't remember on the second half. I don't remember how many exactly. Oh, actually, yeah, no, yeah, I do remember. So on the second half, I guess on 15, like just
Mm.
completely guess. I had no idea what was going on. And then an additional 10, I was like, okay, educated guess. Or it was like a conceptual that maybe I didn't know the answer to, but like it's weird because if you kind of know or you're familiar with certain acts and whatnot, because they had a lot of acts like for environmental. If you're familiar with some of the acts, then I was able to answer those questions. Um, but I want to say like in total, I completely guessed on 22 of them. Just had no idea. I was like, you know what, B is going to be my letter. So I picked B on all of the ones that I had no idea what was going on. And then if I took an educated guess, I tried to kind of do process by elimination. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it worked. So that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Now, are there any areas that were difficult that you would have studied more?
Structures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Structures has never been my strong suit. I just like the trusses and all that, like I couldn't, there was no way I was going to learn it. It took me a long time to just learn it when I was in school. Um and it took me even longer to try to remember how to do it. I mean, and the joint of method is just kind of what we used in class, I mean, if you remember, but and it was like it was so easy when I was in school, but like now I just couldn't, it wasn't, it was one of those things I just it was not processing with me. So that was when I wish I would have spent a little bit more time on. um I think environmental, I would say maybe like reading through like the conceptual stuff. I think I focused too much on the numbers. In environmental, I got a lot of conceptual questions. Um, and the other one is construction. I underestimated construction. Um, and I wish I would have gone a little bit more in depth. And it was because I got a lot of invoicing questions, you know. Even though I do that for work, and I think that's where I was like, oh, you know, I do that every day. It's not what I thought it was gonna be. And so I definitely underestimated construction. It was a lot of like export, import, um, stuff that I don't usually, I use like books for at work. And so I thought, okay, I can probably get this done while I'm in the exam, and I couldn't figure out any of it. So I think construction, environmental, and structure, like joint method or trusses and all that. I think those 3 would have. I wish I would have studied a little bit more.
Okay. And were there any subject that were easier than you expected?
Yeah, so transportation was the easiest because I had done that. I do that for work now, and so that was kind of the easiest one. Um, and the other one that I thought was surprisingly easy was survey. Survey was pretty easy, yeah. And statics, like anything that had to do with statics was probably the easiest.
Awesome. Okay. Which section had a large amount of conceptual questions? You did mention environmental had a lot. Was there
Yes.
any other section?
Um, no, I had all my conceptuals were environmental. Um, yeah, everything else, I think I only got like 3 conceptual questions. Yeah, I got 3 like conceptual where it was like worded kind of conceptual. And the rest were conceptual, but the only reason why they were conceptual for me is because I didn't know how to solve them. And I had looked at, I knew the concepts, so I was able to kind of solve them conceptually.
Mm.
I think I got like, or maybe it was four. I think I had one in steel, two in survey, and another one was like environmental. Um, that I got for conceptual that I
Okay.
can remember. I think I got a few more actually in environmental, so it might have been a total of maybe six. But yeah, that's kind of from what I remember. It wasn't compared to like 50 something questions. It
Hmm.
wasn't a lot in the second half.
Wow, that's interesting because I have a student who I interviewed 2 days ago, Hector, and he even counted. Like after
Oh
he was done, he's like, I'm
yeah.
gonna count. And then he found like it was like 23, I think he got 23 conceptual questions in the
Oh
afternoon.
wow. Yeah.
He had a lot of conceptual
Mhm.
questions. And he actually took it around, I think, beginning October, something like
Oh,
I
okay.
think
Yeah.
recently, like around when you took it, right?
Mhm.
So that's really interesting. And yeah, and even Fred, he took it, I think, even like around September, and he got a lot of conceptual questions. So with the FE exam, you just like you don't know what you're gonna get, and
Yeah.
that's why I always keep mentioning that just focus on studying. You can't focus on what you're gonna get and not get
Mhm.
because you never know what you're gonna have on your exam. But what you can do is try to just study, learn the material, and learn the stuff that's on the specification, learn the reference manual, and just give it your best. So that's why it's really important to focus on that because they always change questions, and it's just like, yeah. Okay. Now let's talk about your life after passing the exam. Did it affect your professional life?
Um It so not directly, but it gave me a lot of confidence.
Awesome.
So it was like I didn't feel like, oh, like I'm not really an engineer because I don't have my FE, and I was the only one who had a bachelor's degree that didn't have their FE yet in at work. And so um I just it was so discouraging to not have it. And so my confidence went up a lot, and because of that, I actually was able to get like a promotion and move to another city to work for another city. And so um, it didn't help directly, but because my confidence had gone so much up, so much higher than how it was before, I was able to kind of like value myself a little bit more and then be comfortable with going for a higher position, just because I knew I don't have anything really holding me back. And so
Amazing. That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Okay. Now, are you planning on taking the PE anytime soon?
Yeah, so I'm just waiting for them to open dates, and I think it's in December or something.
Oh,
So yeah, I'm still kind of in like the study rhythm. So I want to take it as soon as possible because I don't want to lose the rhythm like I did with the FE. And so and it's kind of almost like exciting now because I'm not like dreading it how I was dreading the FE, because I was like, okay, like if I could do that, like I can pretty much do this as well. And so and yeah, I think hopefully I can take it next year.
awesome. Okay. Now, do you have any closing remarks for engineers who are trying to pass their FE exam?
Don't get discouraged. Like we said, like no one's the same. Your path is going to be different than everyone else's, and just kind of keep in tune on like what you know, and like not be afraid to ask for help, because I was so afraid to do it on my previous exams. And then finally I was like, I'm just going to get this course and see if it can help me out. And so um yeah, and I asked a lot. I asked a lot of questions from my supervisor. If I couldn't solve a problem and I was stuck on it, I would try to find like some of your videos online. Maybe it would help me out. Or I ask coworkers or friends, or my supervisor helped me a lot with some of the problems I didn't know how to do. And just like patience. I think patience is very important. Just being patient with your brain and being patient that it may take you longer than what you would like it to take you to study for something or to obtain something.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Rosa, thank you so much for being here with us today and for sharing your FE experience. I really hope, I'm sure it's going to help a lot of students in terms of their studying and their FE exams. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you for interviewing me.
So I really hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Rosa shared some amazing tips with us today. And one of the tips that I really liked is that she's always tuning with her body. She's always listening to her mind and her body and trying to figure out what works for her. And I really recommend that you guys try to do the same thing, because what works for someone else might not work for you. So you have to do trial and error and then find a method that will work for you, and try to listen to your body and your mind. A lot of times you already know what works for you. So just try to listen to that. And if you have a method that's already working, please let us know in the comments below and share it with us. If you guys like this video, please give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for new videos every week. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck with your studying, and I will see you soon. À la prochaine.